Hey, welcome to the second course video for the song High Water from Sleep Token and their album This Place Will Become Your Tomb. I'm musically malnourished, and you're on my journey to go deep and wide in discovering new music and artists. In these videos, we do a deep dive into the lyrics and meaning behind the music. So let's get in, see what's going on with High Water. All right, High Water is the 11th track on Sleep Token's second full-length album. Follows the theme of much of the album as its lyrics focus on vocalist Vessel's mourning over an ended relationship. Musically, the track features a classic Sleep Token mixture of atmosphere and heaviness. It also samples the synth line of Sleep Token's 2018 single, Jaws, which Jaws is over on Patreon. Jaws focuses on the narrator's relationship with someone who is dangerous to the point of the relationship being flawed, but the narrator clearly is drawn to it anyways. High Water, on the other hand, seems to center on the narrator's lamentation over the fact that the relationship is now over. Though not officially confirmed, the rutalized synth implies that the relationship mourned in High Water is the same one explored in Jaws. Interesting. All right. Verse 1. For the time being, I will still avoid my own questions, and we both bury that history deep. But you know I can hold my breath forever. For the time being, you are still a perfect reminder of what all of these scars on my arms are for, if I can hold myself together. Okay, just to speak to the perfect reminder of what these scars on my arms are for, I haven't actually taken a close look, and I don't know if it's fully appropriate to search for these marks on Vessel's arm. Just personally, I don't know. I just got a little check that I don't necessarily feel like doing that. I'll probably see them in the course of time, but that we know Vessel has some marks on his arms that seem to come from self-harm, and that she's this reminder of what these scars on his arm are for, if I can hold myself together. But for the time being, I will still avoid my own questions. Maybe just not wanting... Avoiding your own questions is maybe it's like not wanting to look too deeply into something. Because obviously to avoid someone else's questions is them asking something, wanting information in return. And I can see how in life that idea of avoiding your own questions, it's almost like you just don't want to come face to face with something. You don't want to come face to face with certain realities. Either it's too painful, or like the answer and you don't really want to confront the truth of the answer. So that's a really interesting way of saying that. Let's see what Genius says. It says, sometimes when you get into a toxic relationship, you end up going against your doubt just to continue being with or around this person. Fear of being hurt, or just believing it's easier that way. I'll avoid my own questions, meaning they're choosing to ignore the problems and concerns they have about the situation they're in because they don't want to face the truth about it. So yeah, kind of what I was saying. And it's interesting, it's like you definitely don't want to put that voice to sleep. One of the ways I love to think about it, and again, I'm a Christian, but in the book of Hebrews, it says, today, if you hear the Holy Spirit's voice, don't harden your hearts as they did in the rebellion in the time of testing in the wilderness. And it's going all the way back to the book of Exodus, when Israel comes out of slavery in Egypt and they go into the wilderness, which was meant to be a short journey into Canaan, the promised land. But due to some of their own unbelief and actions, they end up spending 40 years in the wilderness, because God says this unbelieving generation will pass away. And there are these two men that had faith that God would be with them, that they could go into Canaan, and that God would help them. Those two men end up leading the next generation. So it's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time, because he's saying these two young men who believed, like, he's going to let a generation pass so that these two young men grow into be older men. And now, as they have led in a good way through their lives, they're going to take this next generation and lead the next charge. So anyways, with all it being said, Hebrews is pointing back and it's saying, listen, the way that they in the wilderness ignored my voice, they didn't want to hear me, they didn't want to listen, they just wanted to go their own way, even though I'm trying to help and encourage and lead and guide and provide. So it's saying in your own life today, when you hear the Holy Spirit, which I believe that the Holy Spirit lives inside of us when we're followers of Christ, and he works in tandem with our conscience and speaks and gives those checks. But all of us understand the experience of having that side of us that's like, hey, I don't know about that, or maybe this isn't the best move, or maybe you should slow down. We all know what that experience is like. And so the idea of like dodging that person, because you're just like, I know maybe this isn't the right thing, but like, I want to do it. I want to do it my way. So shut up. I don't want to answer your questions. Then we bury that history deep, right? The things that maybe didn't go so well, we kind of just try to forget about it. But I can hold my breath forever. So bury the history is another way of saying they're interacting their thoughts and emotions to what happened between the both of them. Vessel knows that they both have things they want to say but won't. I can hold my breath forever could indicate that Vessel is willing to keep this buried, but will they? It could imply they're being suffocated in the guilt, drowning in the high water, and it's tearing them apart internally, but Vessel can go on forever. For the time being, you're still this perfect reminder of what all these scars on my arm are for, if I can hold myself together. And I choke myself on sacred vapor, waiting on some holy favor, basking in the solace of regret, and it seems my hell is your high water. Wash me clean again before I pull myself beneath the waves. Let's see what these say. One possibility is taking vapor as the Oxford definition of a sudden feeling of faintness or nervousness or a state of depression. Really? I've never heard that. Which would make sense if Vessel is saying he chokes on a state of depression and nervousness from the pressures he receives from his deity sleep or the person. The reason he gets this depressed state of vapor is due to his waiting for sleep's attention or favor, which leads into the line waiting on some holy favor. Note that Vessel says he chokes himself on the sacred vapor, implying his anxiety and depressive state comes from his own worrying and pressure to be the best for sleep. On the other hand, if you took vapor to be a chemistry reference and go with the chemical definition of a substance diffused or suspended in the air, especially one normally liquid or solid, this might be a stretch, but if you do some digging, Vessel could be referring to the Greek god Hypnos, who was the personified form of sleep. We'll finish this and I'll share my thoughts. It was said that Hypnos carried a vapor or liquid-filled horn, depending on versions of mythology, typically an opium, that he would use to induce sleep. If we assume this is what Vessel's referring to, then it lines up as sacred, holy, and spiritual to a god in vapor, liquid droplets. This then leads into the line waiting on some holy favor, which could be Vessel taking this liquid drug to get to sleep to gain the deity's favor or attention. Okay. Part of me feels like, especially in tying in with these lines of pulling, before I pull myself beneath the waves, and this idea of her high waters, so being consumed by her, to me it feels like this, like maybe breathing her in, or taking in the water into his lungs, or even at the surface of the water, the vapors, inhaling them, waiting on some holy favor, waiting on some divine intervention. I don't know. It feels to me like it is all tied together of just like taking her in, consuming who she is, but waiting on some like divine intervention to happen. But he's basking in the solace of regret. His hell is her high water. Piers, the lyric, represents the realization and acceptance. His situation is hell. He knows it's the best sleep can do. High water is in high water mark or best. So despite this being hell, he knows it's sleep's high water mark, ties to the line in the next verse that he accepts that sleep or she will never bear the weight of two. If my hell is your high water, like a high water mark can be a positive thing, right? Like a fullness, almost like what he's going through is pleasing to her. But at the same time, it's like washing him clean before he pulls himself beneath the waves, like he's still going to give in to it. The idea of being washed clean could be Vessel wanting to be forgiven or have some understanding for pulling himself beneath the waves, which could be a reference to the attempt in Atlantic or the self-harm themes throughout the discography. But I don't know, tying in with the first verse, it does seem like obviously they know there's things going on, but he's still embracing it. Wash him clean, but he's going to still go plunge into her depths. When the mouth of infinity buries its teeth in me, I'll smile through the agony for you. And I know you still bear the weight of your own existence, and you'll never bear the weight of two. This says, as this album progresses, the deeper we travel into the ocean, the further we get into Vessel's relationship. Throughout its course, we see him try to deal with the fact he cannot have something, love, happiness. He deals with it in stages akin to stages of grief. Right here, we find ourselves at acceptance. This song, Vessel, is finally reflecting on his relationship and his failures. He's past denial, past bargaining, past vices and relapsing. In Telomeres and this song, we see him begin to heal and reflect. He basks in the solace of regret over his past mistakes. He avoids his own questions, and they both bury that history deep. And you'll never bear the weight of two. Vessel comes to terms with it all. He realizes, understands nothing has worked. Nothing he can do will make his wants come real. Nothing can stop him from drowning in the darkest corners of his mind. And then, in Missing Limbs, we see him fall apart all over again, beginning the cycle anew. Interesting. But never bearing the weight of two. Like, she bears the weight of her own existence, and is it this idea that he's saying, like, I'm not going to put my weight on you? Or is it this idea that he recognizes she doesn't want to bear his weight as well? Because then I think we pretty much just repeat. Yeah, we repeat the chorus. Verse 3, for the time being, I will admit my defeat again. I will accept that I can't pretend we will ever be together. I can't hold myself together. So yeah, if it's this idea, you'll never bear the weight of two, meaning that she's not going to receive him. They've got all these past regrets. They've tried to bury these things. But that he's accepting. I mean, he says it pretty clearly. I can't pretend we will ever be together. So this acceptance, like it said, that things are kind of over. Okay, interesting. Well, you share your thoughts with me in the comments and we'll work together. Remember, we don't always get it right, but we always learn something. So thanks for being with me for this one. I hope to see you in the next one, because we're eating good.